In this video, we're going to look at how to multiply a binomial times a binomial. And remember, a binomial is an expression or a polynomial with two terms. So multiply two terms by two terms. And we're going to look at it in two different ways. The first way is the way that will give you the understanding of what's exactly happening and what goes on behind the scenes, sort of. And then the second way is the quick and easy way you'll do it after you get more practice. So in this problem, I've got 2x plus 3 times x plus 5. And I'm asked to multiply those two. Now, if this was 3 times x plus 5, you would know what to do. You would have to distribute that 3 to each one, and you get 3x plus 3 times 5. So 3 times x plus 3 times 5. Distribute that 3. But in this problem, it's not just a single term up front, but it's a binomial, 2x plus 3 times x plus 5. Hey, that's okay. Same idea applies. This whole thing has to distribute to each term in the second binomial. And that leaves you with x times 2x plus 3 plus 5 times 2x plus 3. Notice how the 2x plus 3 got distributed to each term. But then we're not done yet, because now I'm looking down here, and I notice my x has to distribute now. So I have to go x times 2x plus x times 3, and then, well, hey, my 5 has to distribute as well. So I get plus 5 times 2x plus 5 times 3. And then I go right on through and I simplify this. X times 2x would be 2x squared. X times 3 is 3x. 5 times 2x, 10x. And then 5 times 3 is 15. And one final simplification, combine like terms. And I get 2x squared plus 13x, which is 3x plus 10x plus 15. And there's my product. Now going through that, you had to take the 2x plus 3 and multiply it to each term, to the x and the 5. And then you had to multiply again, do the distributive property again. That's why this process is sometimes called double distribution. So that's what's going on. The 2x plus 3 is distributed to both terms. The quicker way to do it though, and let me rewrite it here, 2x plus 3 times x plus 5, is to understand how, in the end, you must take each term in this first binomial and multiply it by each term in the second one. So it boils down to 2x times x plus 2x times 5. And then you got to take the 3 and distribute it to each one. So plus 3 times x, and then plus 3 times 5. And then you go through once again and multiply each of those terms. So you have 2x squared plus 10x plus 3x plus 15. And once you do one more simplification, you see that we return to the same product. So you're multiplying each term in the first binomial to each term in the second binomial. And that's the quicker, easier way to do it. Therefore, we'll apply that method in our second example here, where I multiply x minus 2 times 3x plus 4. Because now that we understand what's fundamentally happening behind the scenes, we can take that quicker way. So first, I have x times 3x. And then I got to make sure x multiplies 4. So it's plus x times 4. Now moving over to the negative 2. It's negative 2 times 3x. I bring the sign along with it. Don't forget the sign. They're attached at the hip. So it's times plus negative 2 times 4. Bring the sign with it again. Work through this. 3x times x is 3x squared. X times 4, that'd be 4x. And then negative 2 times 3x is negative 6x. And negative 2 times 4, negative 8. And I get 3x squared minus 2x minus 8. There's my simplified product. Okay, so I'm taking each term in the first binomial, multiplying it by each term in the second one. And there's a nice way to remember this process. And in fact, why don't we go through that nice way to remember it in our third example here. It's a mnemonic device, perhaps the most famous of mnemonic devices in all of algebra. FOIL. You'll hear this guy thrown around all the time. I think it's the one thing that all algebra students remember. FOIL. Now, do they remember what it means and what to do with it? I'm not sure, but they remember FOIL. And now that we have gone through what's happening in multiplying these two binomials before this, you will remember what it means. So what do these letters stand for? The F stands for first. And that's because you take the first terms of your binomial and multiply them. So I have 2y times 3y. Then you move on over to your outer terms. And that will be 2y times 5. Notice the outer terms of that product. So it's plus 2y times 5. The I stands for the inner terms. So the next product we have is my inner terms of negative 7 times 3y, bringing along the sign. Negative 7 times 3y. And lastly, I've got last. So the L stands for last. Multiply the last terms. So that would be negative 7 times 5. Notice how the 7 and the 5 are the last terms of each of those binomials. And then I work through and I simplify each of these products. So 3y times 2y is 6y squared. And then 2y times 5 would be 10y. Negative 7 times 3y minus 21y. And then finally, negative 7 times 5, negative 35. Combine any remaining like terms, which would be my y's in the middle, gives me negative 11y, and then minus 35. That's my product. So FOIL is a mnemonic device, an acronym to help you remember those 4 multiplications that you need to do when you are multiplying a binomial times a binomial. Your first terms, then the outer terms, then the inner, then the last. Now FOIL only works for these problems where you're multiplying a binomial times a binomial. However, the general principle of it applies if I'm taking a binomial times a trinomial, or a trinomial times a trinomial, where you take it up that step. The general principle being each term in the first expression has to multiply each term in the next expression. You have to multiply everything by everything. And if you do that, you will successfully multiply your polynomials.